back to Off the Chart, Xtra's 8-part podcast devoted to the groundbreaking Showtime series The L Word and the LA lesbians we can't stop thinking about. With the Generation Q reboot launching soon, we're looking back, season by season, at how the show revolutionized queer women's representation, getting it wrong as often as it got it right. Yes, we are reliving The L Word, so you don't have to. On this episode, we're processing Season 5 and all its meta-movie making, Turkish oil wrestling, and podcasts that are actually vlogs. I'm Michelle Turingen, managing producer of video at Xtra, and I hate playing Never Have I Ever.
I'm Rachel Giza, the editorial director at Xtra, and for Scorpio season, I am claiming Jody as a fellow signmate for her very epic, very, very Scorpio post-breakup fuck you bet revenge art installation.
I'm Erica Lenti, senior editor at Xtra, and in the event of a Toronto lesbian club war, I'd like to play the role of a queer Tony Soprano.
And I'm Eternity Martis, senior editor at Xtra, and I would just like to know if Jenny's film is pronounced Lez Girls or Lez Girls.
Actually, Eternity, I watched ahead and I know the answer.
What is the answer? What is this, the greatest mystery of my life right now?
It was called Lez Girls, or Lez Girls. Everybody pronounced it differently.
Okay, so there is no answer. So it's like potato, potato. I will go with Lez Girls because I speak French and I feel super bougie when I say that. Lez Girls to me.
All right, so let's sum up Season 5. I think Season 5 was all about secrets. So many secrets. Jenny's shady assistant Adele is plotting to take over as director for Lez Girls. Bette is cheating on Jody, having a month-long affair with Tina. Alice and Tasha have to lie about their romantic relationship to the military. Helena makes bail and then bails from LA entirely to who knows where. And Kit secretly buys a gun for self-defense. Shane hides her true feelings from Molly. It's just a whole bunch of secrets. What did you think, Erica?
This was all about the closet and what it means to be in or out of it. So we obviously see that with Tasha's plotline, with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and we'll touch a bit on that later on. But it's also seen with Niki Stevens, the star of Lez Girls, and what it means to be a mainstream actress and gay. And then we see Alice as well, who finds herself gaining fame and attention when she outs celebrities. Questionable and very problematic. What the hell? But that's what really stood out to me.
For me, it was this meta-narrative of we're watching the filming of Lez Girls, and there's a commentary about the L Word itself as we're watching this story about a circle of LA lesbians based on the characters of a circle of LA lesbians. I mean, this is kind of, snake eating its tail. And there seems to be a lot of self-critique on the part of the creator Eileen Chaikin in certain ways, as we see Jenny exploiting her friends and, changing the truth around a little bit for her own fame and glory. And we also see the reaction of the characters to the actresses who are playing them and the question of, can you have straight actresses play gay characters, for instance? And, we've talked before about the question of having, in the case of Carmen and Poppy, having non-Latinx characters play Latinx characters. And then there's this actually really telling scene where Bette reacts to the choice of the actress who is playing her, a white, straight actress, and how problematic that is.
She's white, okay? Was Mary fucking Poppins not available? I mean, really, what the fuck can she possibly know about my life?
Yeah, and I think there's also the question of betrayal and backstabbing. So back to secrets, just a lot of heartbreak this season from Bette cheating on her amazing girlfriend Jody with Tina. Jenny trying to push Tina off the set of Lez Girls. And then there's Adele sabotaging Jenny with a sex tape, trying to take over the movie. We have Niki sleeping with the actor who plays Jim and then hooking up with Shane, which then breaks Jenny's heart. And then there's quote-unquote lover Cindy.
I'm fucking Dawn Denbo, and this is my lover Cindy.
Ends up sleeping with Shane, and then Dawn Denbo goes after Kit's livelihood, all because Cindy strayed. So there's a lot of juicy backstabbing this season.
Okay, let's recap. Starting with Jenny Schecter, our favorite nightmare, who's gone away to rewrite Lez Girls, charms a rich benefactor, William Halsey, played by Wallace Shawn, into bankrolling Lez Girls and wrangles a deal for her to also direct the film. She is particularly awful to Tina, who is producing.
I want you to tell her that it's not going to work.
All right, Vancouver doesn't pass as LA. And I am not going to shoot here in this waterlogged provincial little city, and it was a complete waste of my time to come here when I should have been back in LA prepping for my first day of shooting on Monday. All right?
Jenny, actually, there's been lots of shows that have shot up here successfully, so if you want to take a look at the location.
This is so depressing for Jenny. Like, why did the writers decide this was the direction for Jenny? You know, we started out seeing her, you're empathetic toward her, she has a lot of trauma in her backstory, you really want to root for her, and then they make her a total bitch. And like a nightmare, as you described her on set. I just don't know what happened.
I mean, I love the caricature that she has turned into, just delicious villain. Like, for as awful as she is, it's like so entertaining. And I feel like I read somewhere way back when I first watched this that the main writers for the seasons changed once we got to seasons were later in the series. And that's why we see this major shift in Jenny's character that seems really off from seasons 1, 2, and 3. And for as much as we hate how awful she is, like, I just found it like wildly entertaining. So I still love evil Jenny.
I think it's actually a great, like, Jenny's a very good villain. And then we look at like this season's villain, which is Dawn Denbo. Like, I have such an issue with it. So I'm trying to watch the show and I'm like, why is she threatening people and then laughing? Right? Like, Jenny really commits to it, but like Dawn Denbo's like, I'm going to ruin your life, and then is laughing. Or like when there's like the Turkish oil wrestling, like Shane and her fighting, but they're giggling. And so I feel like we don't actually have a villain of the series at all, and Jenny really nails that.
I think that Jenny is interesting because I think, again, it's kind of saying something about what the L word is. You have this person who is this writer who's kind of arrived in the scene of an already established group of friends, kind of takes over their stories and then uses them for herself. I think that there's kind of a statement about like what it means to be a writer in a way. The idea that, anyone's story is fodder for your story. So I kind of like that play with Jenny not just being an evil diva writer, but also maybe getting at the idea of the act of writing itself is an act of exploitation and being a diva and kind of using people. So I think this direction had been flagged at the very beginning of the show. I mean, I think as much as she was this kind of doe-eyed, freaked out ingenue, she was still incredibly self-absorbed and still incredibly self-involved and still wanted fame and still wanted to be known as a great writer. And I think we've just seen what the logical extension of that was.
Yeah, Mia Kirshner plays her incredibly well, I will say.
All right, shall we move on to Shane?
Ah, yes, someone who has not changed over the course of the series. We pick up with our lovable fuckboy in search of an apartment with Paige, who is her brother's best friend's hot mom. But in usual Shane fashion, she winds up fucking the realtor, who is showing them the apartments. And then it's implied that Paige burns down Shane's skate shop cum salon Wax. And yeah, so then she ends up sleeping with some people from a bridal party and the mother of the bride, and then gets chased away. And she's like,
I have declared a moratorium on sex, a moratorium on drama.
But that's only for like a minute because then she fucks Dawn Denbo's lover, Cindy. And then Dawn declares war on Shane and all of her friends and the planet, which sparks a full-on lesbian club war.
Hey, Shane! Yeah, hey, how you doing? Yeah.
Cindy!
Don't look at her. You messed with the wrong bitch. You fucking come into my house and fuck my beautiful girlfriend without even the courtesy of inviting me? You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fucking ruin you, okay? And every one of your smug-ass motherfucking friends. And your stupid-ass fucking planet. It's done.
And then randomly she falls for Phyllis's daughter, Molly, who's a self-proclaimed straight girl. Don't worry, she messes that up too because Phyllis tells her she's not good enough for her daughter. So she sleeps with Niki Stevens on a railing at the Lez Girls rap party, which just seemed incredibly unsafe. But it was just Shane why is she always so self-destructive? I don't understand. It's getting a little old to me.
I think Shane does also make sense, even though this is like sort of high soap opera. I think that we've established that Shane is a player and is vulnerable. And when things get too good and too settled, Shane has to screw it up.
Yeah, but I feel like the self-destructive behavior is getting old. Like, if you put Shane in a show today, I feel like that character would have some sort of redemption or like look inwards. Like, now we have Instagram. There's all these like IG doctors who have like, deal with your unhealed trauma and wounds and like your parenting attachment styles. Like, would Shane last? Like, would an audience today, like, would they be okay with this type of Shane, or would they want something more from Shane? And I feel like we're 5 out of the 6 seasons in, and we haven't gotten what we should get. A character like that hasn't necessarily grown. Yeah. Like, grown in friendships, has proven themselves as a great sister, as a great friend, but hasn't like truly loved themselves yet.
I mean, this is literally the same plot line where her estranged father, Gabriel, says, "You're a McCutcheon, this is in your blood," and then pieces out on Carmen. Like, this is literally exactly the same.
This is the same thing. And like, I feel like a show today, like, that would be the moment when you're like, okay, like, I got daddy issues. And then work on those daddy issues. Right. But Shane just like nearly damn killed a girl, like going down on her on a railing.
In the reboot, will Shane finally love herself is the big question, I think.
TBD.
Let's move on to Bette and Tina.
All right, so to Bette. So in
Are we still going with that?
We are, for the purpose of this podcast. I'm kind of liking it now. So Tina tries to date other people, but is still really in love with Bette, who is also kind of in love with Bette. But Bette is with Jody. And surprise, Tina and Bette begin to have an affair, and their friends find out. So they decide to give their relationship another shot, and Jody is super devastated and really, really angry.
Put them out. I never meant to. I never meant for this to happen.
What happened? I don't even know what's happening.
I think that Tina and I, we just never really finished.
And she gets revenge on Bette by showcasing this huge installation piece about Bette's deceitfulness, which she says is called CORE, as in the core values of love, honesty, loyalty, and commitment. So that was, that was a mess. We kind of see that Bette is starting to realize that this is a pattern of behavior that she has. But then in this season, we also get to see Tina as a person with some like real emotion and making decisions. So like, what do we think about that? But also, why would anyone choose Tina over Jody?
Good question. I mean, I thought it was great the first time we've actually seen Tina angry. Like when Bette first cheated on her in the first season or whatever, we see her like drawing the line on the chart or whatever. And she goes to this oil wrestling thing and she's so mad at Niki Stevens. I was like, finally, Tina, you are showing some real emotion. Get angry, girl. Express yourself. It's the most alive we've seen Tina at this Shebar setting of all places.
I think that Jody is amazing. We talked before about how Jody is finally a match for Bette because Tina had been just so sort of milquetoast and kind of always just did what Bette told her. I think what's interesting about Tina in these like later seasons is you actually see Tina come more into her own. So you actually see her on set and being the boss and having to take charge. So it feels like there is more equality in her relationship with Bette. I have to say, for me, and like I said, I think in the very first episode of the podcast, I was like a Bette Porter ride or die. Bette is increasingly like pissing me off, in that like she has ceased to try with Jody. So, she goes when she meets Jody's friends and she's just awful. And she's such a constant stick in the mud. And Jody is really fun. Like Jody is very playful, very adventurous. And Bette really wants the world to revolve around Bette. And so I think that in some ways it kind of makes sense that she ends up with Tina, because even though Tina has grown more and is more sort of forceful, I think that Bette does not want to be with somebody who could ultimately match her in terms of power, in terms of strength, in terms of personality. So, it is perplexing because I think Jody's amazing, but at the same time, it does kind of track for Bette, I think.
So you're a Jody Lerner ride or die now?
Well, I mean, I have to say, like, I did think that the art installation, while like mortifying, was actually like so perfect in terms of like being a devastating thing for Bette to experience, because it was humiliating Bette exactly where she lives, which is, you know, in her art community, and having her personal life being, you know, put out there in this way. So yeah, I think I have. I'm sorry to see Jodie go.
I'm going to be a tech nerd and be like, when I was watching the video installation, I was like, when did Jodie record all of this footage to put together?
Yeah, like, was she recording her the whole time?
Oh my God, it was like Mark. It was like the old roommate Mark.
She went through his archives.
She was wearing a wire this whole time.
But yeah, to add to your point, I think it's really interesting to see Bette like kind of give in to Jodie. Like, you don't see that in any other seasons. Bette is just constantly apologizing to her, which she never does with Tina, and continues to be like her usual awful self to Tina, even throughout this season while she's like having this affair with her. But there was a really interesting moment that they shared in the elevator during the blackout that I wanted to point out, because it further confirms my theory that Bette is exactly like Shane, where Bette says,
I'm afraid that I'm destructive, that if I have something good, I feel compelled to destroy it.
And that's kind of exactly what Shane does. You know, she has a good thing and destroys it. And clearly we see Bette doing the same thing.
Unhealed trauma wouldn't last in 2019. Same.
All right, let's move on to Alice and Tasha.
Okay. Alice is building up the chart. She's making it into some sort of dating service, and she's also making it a podcast, which is actually a vlog. It's kind of confusing. She is wrestling with Tasha's fight to remain in the military and just wants to be supportive, but just doesn't quite get what Tasha's fighting for.
I'm just having a hard time understanding why you want to be part of an institution that hates who you are, okay? I'm struggling with that.
Tasha is under investigation for homosexual conduct and has decided to go to court to defend herself and to actually push back against the don't ask, don't tell law. And she goes up against a lawyer who's played by Kelly McGillis, who was in Top Gun, a nice little throwback to that movie, who is herself closeted and has the sort of same kind of belief in honor as Tasha does, but has opted to have a closeted and what seems a very kind of sad life. In the meantime, Alice is kind of dealing with the ups and downs of her relationship. She and Tasha break up for a while throughout this process by outing people. She goes to a party with Tasha. She sees a closeted basketball player there with another man, dancing with him and kissing him. And he has been somebody who in public has said homophobic things. And so Alice decides to out him publicly. And this is like a little bit after the big debates about outing like closeted politicians and closeted celebrities. And I have to say it was deeply, deeply uncomfortable for me. I don't know how it felt for the rest of you to have Alice out this person. And you can see it in Tasha as well. Tasha's saying, but like, I've been outed. Like, I'm losing my job and what I care about because I've been outed, and you're doing the exact same thing.
Who are you to judge that man's life? You don't know what he's going through or what his circumstances are. Like, what's the difference between you outing him and the military outing me?
Oh my God, that's so different.
No, it's not different. And then you do it on national fucking television.
I tried to call you all day to see if that was all right.
How can that be all right?
Yeah, it was deeply uncomfortable for me to watch as well, just because I think Alice would be canceled for doing this kind of stuff nowadays. You know, I think there's a distinction for some folks between outing just everyday celebrities who are just in the closet and folks who have power, who are actively working to enact, say, homophobic policies, or in the case of the basketball player that Alice outs, he was being very homophobic and didn't want to have gay people on his basketball team or on the court with him.
I totally respect someone's choice to stay in the closet. I do. If that's what they want to do, I get it. But I don't think it's okay to kiss your boyfriend one day and then go out and trash gay people the next. Especially if you're a public figure and you have people looking up to you. No, I don't feel bad.
I do not feel bad about what I did.
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with outing anyone, but I think that there is that distinction between outing folks who are not doing anything to hurt queer people and those who are.
Yeah. I guess in the end, it still is relying on homophobia and shame as the punishment, you know? So to me, it's like using this mechanism that oppresses us to say, like, you don't get to have your, you know, straight privilege. I'm going to, you know, drag you into this. So in the case of the basketball player, it's not going to be his hypocrisy that will ruin his career. It will be his gayness that will ruin his career, right? So, I mean, I think that's the thing that's troubling, is that it's then saying, well, I want to punish people with homophobia as opposed to, you know, I want to punish people for their hypocrisy. And I think that's where it becomes challenging in the case of someone, even like a homophobic basketball player, because then he will be the person, you know, persecuted. He will be the person made fun of and mocked and being told that no one wants to be in the locker room with him. And I think that's the thing that is unsettling for me.
Yeah, I found it deeply uncomfortable.
Well, and also it ends like Tasha's case ends because Alice threatens the lawyer and says, like, suggests I know you're gay. And this lawyer says, I'll make it go away if you don't out me. And so you also have like outing kind of winning here in a funny kind of way. I don't know.
I've never liked Alice.
Really?
I think I said that in like the first episode or something.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like Alice. I especially don't like Alice in this season because in the same way that we kind of like rail on Jenny for like wanting fame and like ruining her friendships, I feel like Alice did this here in this outing situation and never apologizes really, like is never actually sorry for anything that she does. Like she just seems very relentless to me, and like while I don't agree with having to be in the closet in the military, there's a lot of things that Alice does that puts Tasha at risk, especially during the case, and never apologizes for it. Mm-hmm. So like a low, like a Jenny like 2.0, but like not a fan of Alice at all.
I actually, I would agree. This was probably my least favorite Alice of the series, just because, like you said, she doesn't apologize. And I think, yeah, we should probably hold her to account for that, because if we're going to shit on Jenny, we should shit on Alice too.
Agree. All right, what's happening with Max Sweeney?
Yeah, I'll touch on this really quickly. Max is still a very sad character, which breaks my heart. So we open the season and he talks a bit about his decision not to have top surgery. And there's this big debate around where his place is in his community of queer women, whether there is space for trans folks in lesbian communities. He writes this blog for Alice's site where he talks about trans issues, and he just gets this onslaught of very turfy comments about it. Alice is kind of upset about where Max belongs and sort of taking over that space.
You know, I feel like we're getting a little off topic here for our chart.
Why is it off topic?
Well, I mean, our chart's for lesbians.
I thought our chart was for everybody. It's our chart. I mean, doesn't that suggest it's inclusive?
Well, sure, Max. I mean, it's a little technical, but yeah, it's for everybody.
And then we end the season with Max and Tom, who is Jodie's interpreter, actually finding one another and having a relationship. And that brings a lot of thoughts and emotions for Max, who's trying to figure out what his identity is. We've seen him go from a lesbian when he still identified as Moira to a straight trans man to now a gay trans man dating men. So it's a really interesting arc. But I still think he needs justice. No one is nice to him. No one listens to him throughout the series. It's true. And again, I think it's like the failing of the show to put Max in any kind of trans context ever. Because I agree, I think that there are some really interesting narratives. And when Max tells off Alice and says, there should be a place for me here, or even watching Max's evolving identity and his dating life is actually really interesting and really complex. And that certainly was not a story or a narrative that would have been common on network television at the time. But I feel like Max is always on the periphery of the central group, and he never has the company of other trans folks. He's never in community with other trans people. And so by default and by design, he's always this lonely character who has to, I think you were talking about this, Shell, in an earlier episode, he has to carry the weight of all the representation.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's an interesting thing in the show, because we've talked about how the show has kind of made Max a sad character who, only tragic things happen to him. But I also find it a bit weird. It's almost like, Did they actually, like, were they more progressive than that? Because there are a lot of times when, like, the group is being super turfy, and then Max actually says something that is actually correct. So, like, a little bit earlier in the season, Alice is, like, not using the correct terminology, and Max then corrects her. Or they talk about top surgery, and Phyllis is like, huh, what's top surgery? And Max explains it. So, like, the direction of Max has not been great, but Max also seems to be this person who is an educator. So I don't know who was like writing like the scenes with Max, but there seems to be a little bit of more knowledge, I think, than maybe we're giving the show credit for. Or there may have been that one person in the writing room that was like, yeah, this is not okay. But
Yeah.
The one thing that really stood out to me on rewatch about Max was just how much of this seems to mirror what's going on in 2019. I think the whole blog thing and Max trying to navigate space in lesbian communities and such is it could be happening right now. It could be happening on Twitter right now. So that was really really stood out to me rewatching Max in this season.
All right, what's happening with Kit Porter?
My girl, Kit. So, not good news. Kit is robbed at gunpoint at the Planet, and then Kit buys a gun to protect herself, but then she's threatened by Dawn Denbo, who's still mad about Shane sleeping with lover Cindy. Dawn actually buys Ivan's share of the Planet and becomes the majority owner. So Kit is like very upset about this and almost shoots up Shebar, but then later throws out the gun after Angelica picks it up and is playing with it. So that is basically it for Kit. But then Helena Peabody comes back. So Helena goes to prison and then starts getting with her sexy butch cellmate Dusty, who is played by Lucia Riker, who is actually a real-life champion boxer. And then Helena gets out of prison, then runs off with Dusty, but then returns to LA to basically save the day by helping Kit buy the Planet back from Dawn by hooking up with Dawn's partner, lover Cindy, and then also takes over Shebar. So there's a lot of Dawn and Cindy's relationship in this season. You know, like we've kind of been laughing about it, but can we actually talk about the abusive nature of their relationship?
Yeah, Dawn is actually quite controlling and quite abusive towards Cindy.
Dawn. Shut it. You know, I got an idea. What if you kept your mouth shut for 2 seconds and you actually let your girlfriend talk?
Because she's got nothing to say.
I think on rewatch, it was clear that Cindy was quite frightened of Dawn, that was controlled by Dawn, that Dawn had a lot of the economic power in the relationship, that she made all the choices in the relationship. And you don't ever I don't remember seeing Dawn being physically violent at all towards Cindy, but Cindy always had this kind of shrinking away, this kind of, she always seemed to be just sort of nodding and saying yes to whatever Dawn wanted. And as I was watching the season, I was actually reading Carmen Maria Machado's new memoir, In the Dream House, which is about domestic violence in a lesbian relationship. And it felt very relevant to this plot line.
Yeah, I agree. And like with Carmen's book coming out and kind of breaking open that myth that queer women's relationships are like this safe utopian space all the time. And so it felt like in this relationship, we got to kind of see now on rewatch that it wasn't utopian or safe. Like Cindy wasn't being saved by Dawn or wasn't like there and had financial support. It was very much about power and control in the way that we see it in a lot of like heterosexual relationships. So yeah, watching it back, it was super cringy. And now that we've read like Carmen's book, it was really hard to watch.
I do love that when Helena comes in and saves the day, buys Shebar, and kind of takes Cindy away with the crew. Cindy has her last word to Dawn and is just like, Tucker, my name is Cindy Tucker, right? Like she's just like, this is my name. I'm a human being. I'm not just your object. So she does get justice in the end.
Justice
just for Cindy
Tucker.
Cindy Tucker.
Okay, there's so much more we could talk about, but just like every single person in LA during a blackout, it's time for a quickie round. This time we're going to talk hottest, funniest, cringiest moments of season 5. So what was the hottest moment?
Well, I'll start with the hottest moment. Alice and Tasha having sex with the ice cube during the blackout.
It's hot in here, isn't it?
It's getting hotter.
There's that baby. It can cool you off.
Yeah.
And this whole season has been this up and down for the two of them, because are they going to stay together? Are they not? But they've always had this like really great sexual chemistry. It's probably the one thing that they do actually have in common. And I thought that scene was really hot.
Indeed.
Yes. Am I the only one? I mean, come on.
Well, Alice seems to have like a thing for props in the bedroom.
That is true. That is true.
And we'll continue to see that in season 6. But so what were the funniest moments from season 5? I happen to love when Shane and Alice get high on some weed brownies at Jenny's kind of cast party.
Hey, you want one? Oh, I'm good, thanks. Hey, listen, they're not gay, I promise.
Oh my God, what if they were gay? What if the brownies were gay?
They're all fucking each other.
Oh, hey, you're hot.
This idea that brownies are gay is the best.
I mean, I know we just talked about the awfulness of Dawn and Cindy's relationship, but I did find it hilarious that in their condo, all their artwork is like these artsy, erotic photos of the two of them, which also felt like it really tracked with their relationship.
My favorite, I don't even think it's really a standout line during the pink ride. Unintentionally hilarious Shane line number 2 following Jail is whack.
What kind of bullshit tent is this?
It was on sale at Costco.
Do we really believe that Shane McCutcheon has a membership to Costco? There's no way.
I think for me, it's the Charlie's Angels vignette with the gaydar guns at the top of episode 3, which is very fitting right now with the very gay reboot happening with K-Stu, who kind of reminds you a little bit of Shane.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. But Shane as an angel was actually a babe. Like, I don't know if anyone caught that, but I was just
Move
can
it to
fall under hottest. Hottest and funniest.
All right, so what were some of the cringiest moments from season 5?
In the beginning of episode 1, there was a whole string of outdated words in the first episode. And it's when Alice is talking to Max and first says that Max isn't part of the chart, calls him a tranny, which Max clarifies that it is being transgendered with an ED. And then Phyllis asks him if he's had a sex change operation. And this all happened in 1 minute. And it was so cringy, but it's also just like, that is such a reflection of how language changes and has evolved, but super cringy. It was like 45 seconds of just like, ugh, not good.
My cringy moment was when Helena's in prison. First of all, Alice makes a really bad prison rape joke, makes a drop the soap prison rape joke. And then we actually see a scene where Helena is maybe about to be assaulted in some way in the showers. And it just sort of plays into, it makes light of something that's incredibly serious and awful and traumatic. But then it also plays into every single possible lesbians in prison trope. So that was my cringy moment.
Are we seeing a pattern here about Alice being the worst? Like Alice is the culprit of cringiest.
Yeah, it's
moments.
true. I mean, she does have that kind of like she's super spoiled and doesn't see the world beyond her own reality at all.
No, I don't feel bad.
Oh no. Have we ruined Alice?
I do not feel bad about what I did.
She ruined herself. She ruined herself.
Well, that's it for this episode. Next time, we take a look back at the final shit show season 6 with all of its blackmail, stealing, and murder.
Murder.
I'm Michelle Turingen.
I'm Rachel Giza.
I'm Eternity Martis.
And I'm Erica Lenti.
Off the Chart is produced by Corey Mosqueda and Rachel Matlow. Our theme is by Kid Coolit. If you like what you're hearing, please review us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And feel free to get in touch with us on Twitter at Xtra Magazine. Mia Kirshner, if you're listening, at Reply Us. Until next time.
You messed with the wrong bitch. You fucking come into my house and fuck my beautiful girlfriend without even the courtesy of inviting me? Even the courtesy of inviting me?